No mai, haere mai, welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod, brought to you by Ashley and Martin Medical Hair Centres. We have a cracking show for you today. Halfway through Super Rugby, we have a look at a few things that are going on. A bit of a review, the players that have come up, the rookies of the year so far, the players of the year so far, the trends that we've seen across the board. Plenty going on in there. We've got our turning point today with Ashley and Martin, and we've got a very special guest, Malcolm Marx. Springboks hooker, two-time World Cup winner. Chipper?
Oh, mate, I'm pretty excited. And I know you guys tried to trick me and it didn't work out, but I tell you what, it's, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to convincing to a game of golf as well.
Yeah, we tried to make it a secret, but time shifted. We couldn't make it a secret. We had to tell Jip. So, yes, we'll have Malcolm Marx on, talk to him about all sorts of things, talk to him about getting over the ball, pilfering it, life in Japan, winning World Cups, everything that we can get into with Malcolm Marx. And of course, that's been teed up by our mate Bryn Hall, who plays with him in Kubota. Bryn, thank you very much for doing that, getting the Springbok champion on for us.
No problem, lads. It was it would have been really nice if we were able to see Jipper's reaction if we did get him on and he saw him straight away. But look, really looking forward to it. The old bugger, he really got a broken nose on the weekend, so hopefully he looks good for camera, but he is a good-looking man, so I look forward to seeing how he actually turns up. Seeing him, we've got a day off today, so look forward to seeing his face, but also his stories there. He's probably going to give us some good nuggets as well.
It'll be tender.
Yeah. Anything sorer than that you've experienced? Snapping your nose back into place?
No, I don't think so, because even when you break your arm or leg, it's just different. Like, I think when it's around your face and your eyes are watering, most of the time you're trying to not look like you're crying. It's just a natural reaction, but I definitely think the nose is definitely the most tender.
Yeah, no, we've got plenty to look forward to on top of that as well. Of course, there's a huge Blues Moana Pacifica game coming up this weekend, and following that is the Aupiki final in prime time, 7 o'clock this Saturday night, where the Blues will host Matatu, so we'll get into that final as well. We've got your emails. Please email us at aotearoarugbypod@sky.co.nz and comments section as well. We've got a few of your emails to get into today. And of course, we've got the pick and comp as well, where things went pretty well over the weekend. But first, let's get into our Super Rugby review. Rookies of the first 8 rounds. Let's start there, because there have been some really good, young, talented players that have made a big impression so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, one stands out for me is Tupou Ta'iloa from Moana Pacifica, purely because down in Southland, he's probably played more of a bench role, hasn't started a hell of a lot, but has had a big impact. But I think the uniqueness of his story, he was offered an opportunity to train. He got himself up to Auckland with the support of the Stags, the Southland Stags, so they need to be acknowledged for the success story he is. But he has just absolutely set the world alight. And, there is this big talk about the ARP factor, but I do think if you watch the growth and development, he turned up there hungry, wanting to prove a point, wanting to play Super Rugby. So that was obviously step one, but then probably seeing how Adi goes about his business in terms of professionalism to be able to do it week in, week out. And, to me, he's the out rookie of the season so far, if not even in the conversation for player of the tournament so far. Just the numbers he's getting through. I suppose ball carrying is what he's known for, but he's been doing a lot of good work around that breakdown space. And I just think it's a really cool story for someone that's just, put it all on the line and gone up there and got the bit between his teeth, acknowledged the coaching as well, but as an individual, he is just fronted and then some. More often than not, he dominates every collision he goes into.
And Bryn, that breakdown work from Moana Pacifica is superb. They're as good as anyone with guys like him in there.
Yeah, Tupou Ta'iloa has been unbelievable for them. With Miracle Whailangi, Adi Severe coming back from injury. Look, it's a really formidable loose ball tree that they have there. The defensive turnover work that they're able to get at the breakdown area is usually in the early teens, where it's 12, 11, 13, something like that, which, is really hard to be able to attack when you've got jacklers at the breakdown area when it comes to loose ball tree. So you've been really impressed with him and the opportunity that he's been given from the Southland Stags and getting some really good game time. So can definitely be warranted Rookie of the Year so far. A couple that I've got, we've got Pellegrini that we've touched on. He's had a great start to the year when he's been given his opportunity post Garden Bishop, who I actually thought was great when he came on at 12. But a couple that I've got is Leroy Carter for the Chiefs. Played a lot of sevens. Has played a bit of rugby for Bay of Plenty on the wing and 9. But look, he's been really consistent in that winger position for the Chiefs. So he's definitely one guy that I've got here for the halfbacks. I had to pick some halfbacks, Jip. no doubt you've got hookers that you'd want to do as well. But look, I think Kyle Preston, his start to the season, he has been with the Crusaders, was really good. Obviously scores a hat-trick on his debut, but I think the consistency of what he's playing and required with the Nines in that Crusaders environment was very good. And that battle with Noah Hotham is going to be a tremendous battle throughout the year. I thought Noah played well on the weekend as well. Nathan Hasty for the Highlanders, he was great on the weekend, and he's had some great involvements as well through the duration of the start of this season. So there are a couple, and Tangitau, Caleb Tangitau has been the big mover for me. Obviously played at the Blues, wasn't able to get a lot of opportunities with Mark Tellier. Caleb Clark being in the outside backs and being having some very good depth in the outside backs of the Blues. But he's one guy who I think has been outstanding with his opportunities with the Highlanders.
Another halfback as well is Kalani Thomas. I think he's actually putting a bit of pressure on Tate McDermott, and his game against the Highlanders was massive in terms of them getting the result. I think to stick with some Aussie flavour, I think Riley, the winger for the Waratahs, you've seen his pace, you've seen his ball and hand work, but man, his hit, he can, against the Brumbies, he absolutely snapped someone in half, and poor old Pellegrini got absolutely rocketed with a high ball on the weekend. So he's another one, I think. And then, is it too early to say, or is it, can we say Suoli'i? Is he a rookie?
Yeah, he's a rookie.
He's technically a rookie.
He's a Super Rugby rookie.
I've seen enough to say that he's pretty strong.
And at fullback?
I prefer him at fullback.
Yeah.
I still think when they're transitioning from league to rugby, I think wing. I think centre's too big a ass. I think fullback, he looked naturally strong, but there is an element of that kick strat that probably was a little bit off, especially in the second half. So having that ability to roam and hover like a winger would, I think, potentially be his best position, but there's definitely a little bit of Israel Folau about him in that fullback role and what he can achieve. But a real guy that I think's gone under the radar, and Crusaders lock Shalfoon, I think he's been a stalwart for that pack, and massive in set piece, but just doing some good work on the edges, has the carry skill set of being able to pop out the back, offload, and sort of probably even goes under the radar a little bit for the Mako as well and MPC, but he's made every minute count, and certainly in an area that we seem to get a lot of injuries and locking stocks. I'm not saying that, he's going to make the All Blacks this year, but definitely in the frame for an All Blacks 15 call-up, no doubt, if he continues on this form.
Big body.
A massive, but big engine. He gets through a mountain of work, especially defensively, and in an area as well. Like, he's always first to set at line-out time, which gives, well, from a hooker's point of view, you love that because you want to get the ball in as quick as possible, so there's no competition. But I think he's had a massive season so far and allowed guys like Barrett and Co to rest up.
There's a bunch of quality players in there now. Of course, Super Rugby Player of the Year is something that we're doing this year. So Tom Hooper, I think, from the Brumbies has been leading that relatively consistently throughout the first 7 rounds. When we record this show, the 8th round one hasn't quite been released yet. But where are you thinking for Player of the Year so far, Brenna?
Yeah, look, I think, Tom Hooper from the Brumbies has been very consistent, especially what he's done with that 4-pack. His engine, just been really impressed with his engine, how much work he actually gets through. We've touched on, Ethan Blackadder with the Crusaders and his high work rate. But yeah, look, Tom Hooper's been definitely doing that for the Brumbies. I've got Tizano as well. Like, any time you could score and be the leading try scorer.
Mate, they're just small tries. Come on. I'm a big Mick Wright fan.
That battle for that number 7 jersey, Jip, Mick Wright, we've waxed lyrical in terms of what he brings to that red side. He's a great player in terms of not just over the ball, but his attacking ability, his work rate as well. So that, conversation of who will be that number 7 for the Wallabies for that British Irish Lions series will be really interesting.
Are you taking Tizano or are you taking McWright?
I'd go Tizano. His breakdown work in terms of how physical he is around the breakdown, both ball in hand and around the ball. Used to line up more, we score tries, and I joke about that. But I just think physicality-wise, what they're going to need to be required against the British Irish Lions is someone that's his kind of size.
Physicality-wise, Tizano, to me, would be a better fit at 6. Personally, I think the link role, the ability to get into a breakdown and not make it physical and get a turnover, I just think there's a lot to like about McWright on the edge as well. Like we've seen with that Hooper mechanism where he can hover, and he's a real athlete with that speed out on the edge. I just think he's more of the complete 7 and a genuine 7 in my eyes. And I also think, although he's got the 11 tries, Tizano, I think McWright can change a game. In any aspect, in terms of attack, defence, whatever it may be, breakdown. He just has a knack of doing the unthinkable when you need it most. And I suppose even when we're looking at this player of the year, I don't have Mick Wright in there just because he's missed a few games, but it's actually been hard to pick a player out of the Reds because as a team, they are going so well across the board, and that's a sign that everyone knows their roles and plays within it. But it's Mick Wright for me all day, no doubt, and just more experience at that level. I don't think, I wouldn't mind Valentini at 8 and Tizano at 6. It does shorten your line out, but I've said this before, when do you ever see a full line out these days? So it doesn't really matter. And the way that, Swain and Williams are going at the force, that's almost your starting locking period right there.
So it's not because he's taking hookers tries?
No, it's definitely not. It was actually refreshing to see him give Brandon Paenga-Amosa one off one of the mauls on the weekend. But no, it's definitely not. And it's a lot harder than, I was being facetious to really just have a crack, but it is a lot harder than I'm making out. Like, he is a very good exponent of that. But in terms of what I would like in a 7, I would definitely go Mick Wright every day of the week.
Now, Breno, I interrupted you. Who are your other people for player of the year?
Luke Jacobson for the Chiefs. Look, they're on the top of the table, and he's been in and around why they've been so successful. Look, his breakdown turnover work, his high attrition rate in the collision area, and obviously, leading really well as well. So look, he's one guy that I have had. And then the last one I had, I know it's not based around where they are on the table, but geez, when Ardie Severe's been on the field from Moana Pacifica, he looks like better than everybody else out on the field. And that's the consistency that he's shown. You look at even on the weekend against the Waratahs, the involvements that he's having on both sides of the ball, and I guess taking that team to another level around consistency with him on the field. So you can't go past Ardie Severe, I think, with the way that he's playing. He probably doesn't get the MVP vote overall just because he has missed a couple of games due to injury. So right now, it's probably Tom Hooper and his consistency with the Brumbies at the moment.
Probably going to mention a few guys that haven't played every minute, but I think Anton Leonard-Brown's having one of his best seasons. If he continues, I think Dave Havili's another one in that midfield pairing. I've mentioned Swain and Williams. Like, they are the point of difference for the Force and why they're sitting at 4th. I can't differentiate one of them because they're both having an impact at that line-out. Tavatawa Nawai is obviously in the conversation. I think Sean Withy, I know, even though he got his red card, and probably hurts him a little bit in terms of the points, but I think he's in there. But I'm with Bryn. I think Jacobson or Ardie. And purely, and look, Hooper's in there, but when you look at it from a pure numbers point of view, but then more importantly, what impact are they having on the result of a game? I think, Ardie's probably leading that in terms of the Chiefs have got a lot more experience and depth around them, which allows Luke to probably focus on his game, whereas Ardie is literally lifting this team and taking them, and probably more so off the park in terms of that Monday to Thursday, but he's still doing it on the park. So probably Ardie's slightly ahead, but I think Luke Jacobson, just that performance on the weekend, 15 carries, 4 offloads, so only 11 times going to the ground, 15 out of 15 defensively, a lot of breakdown work, just under 30 there, just a big engine that just keeps turning up. And he did that all in conditions, like 4 offloads in those conditions that accurately go to hand is seriously impressive. So, we're a little bit aligned. There's still a lot of rounds to go, but those are probably my core guys that I'm looking at the moment if things continue the way they are.
Looking through 8 rounds, maybe, let's have a look at the All Blacks. What is the most contentious position that you see right now where you've seen, okay, there are people going for this and we don't know who is going to wear that jersey?
10. I think, it's probably a 2-horse race, but it's pretty hard because, Damien's having a massive impact and I think every time Beauden Barrett's been in the team, he's had a massive impact. So I think that battle, I couldn't pick it at the moment, but I do feel on the weekend you just saw how important Beaudy was to the Blues, and you can see it when that first half against the Brumbies and then when he goes away. And again, it's that impact on result. And they're both doing that at the moment. But you'd have to say Beaudy's probably doing it with a lot less around him with the amount of injuries and the changing to the 23s each week for the Blues.
Why don't we take that to Ashley and Martin turning point? Because Beauden Barrett has been, quite superb in the time he's played, Brenner. What is it about what he's doing right now that is helping the Blues when he is on the field? Why is he turning things for them when he's around?
Just his game management. Jib's touched on a lot and around his communication skills and what he does for other players. Like, that's just going to help your team, having a guy like that. But situationally, I thought he was really good on the weekend, whether it was his attacking kicks, his long kicking game, his game management game. I thought it was really good. We know his attacking ability and he can bring that at any time. But I think more so on the weekend, situationally, with what he was required from your 10 in game management wise, I thought he was really good, especially against the Hurricanes, where I thought it was a very tit for tat game. Both teams were very desperate, but his influence is at crucial times, where there was his goal kicking. I even look at maybe the 77th minute when he puts up a contestable kick. Caleb Clark and Rico Ioane are able to then contest for that ball, and then there's a knock on from that from Ruben Love. But those kind of situations, that's something that I was really impressed with, considering that the Blues needed him to play well situationally, and I thought he did that really well on the weekend with his goal kicking as well.
And he's just got that ability when he carries. He naturally draws in that outside defender. And what I mean is, when he gets on the outside of the defender that's on him, they bite. And if they don't bite, he'll go through. He's still got that pace. So I think that raw pace is massive, but it's then the decision he makes when he sees that defender freeing up the outsides. And sometimes there's a short ball or there's a ball out the back. It seems every time at the moment he is hitting the right person to create the space or to score the try. Another thing I agree with Bryn is his kicking game, but I think it's reading and understanding how to get the result. And so often, even when I played at the Blues with Beaudy, he loves his contestables, he loves his attacking kicks. But for the 16 kicks he had, just under 700 metres, 15 of them were long and tactical, and looking for that territory gain. And that was the difference in the end. His goal kicking obviously was the actual difference, but he just put them in the right places that allowed them to grind themselves to the win. They're still not flowing. They're not in their mojo as we've seen previously. But I think his ability and the confidence to, if you look at when they beat the Canes in Wellington, they held on, whereas this was like a chess match to get the result. Yep. And I think the Hurricanes will be a little bit disappointed because they left a lot out there and probably should have won the game. But I think Beaudy was a key catalyst in making sure that didn't happen. And then I think what showed me the biggest turning point, 79th minute, he makes that tackle and takes the Hurricanes, I think it was Kini Naholo, out, which gives them the ball back, which allows them to get the result. Now that's match defining. The penalty kick match defining, but there, on defence, Kini Naholo, we know how electric he can be. He takes a physical tackle and drags him out, which I don't know, like it just, his mindset and his sharpness, it almost felt like not only a turning point potentially, well, maybe I'm just hoping that for the Blues, but definitely for him. Definitely for him. I think backing up from that Brumbies first half, it was like, whoa, he wants to be in this contest for this 10 jersey, and both Damien and him are certainly presenting very good cases, which makes it hard to select.
So that's Beauden Barrett as your Ashley and Martin turning point this week. But are those turning points, Brynner, enough for you to pick Beauden Barrett above Damien McKenzie at 10 in the most contentious position?
I don't know, Ross, because it's going to be a specific style that the All Blacks selectors are wanting. They gave Damien the opportunity last year. He made some really good improvements in his game management-wise, to be able to be his first year as a 10 in the All Blacks environment. But then you've got Beaudy, who's had so much experience, is playing some great footy, which we've touched on with the Brumbies, and then on the weekend, and they know exactly what they're going to get with him. That's a consistent message that Razor's been saying around Beauden. He's a test-level player, and they can depend on him whenever they want. So
what would your gut be that the All Blacks would want to select?
I'm never really on the fence here, Ross, but I don't know. I honestly, in this situation, I don't know, because they can go one or two ways. But honestly, I don't know. I actually just can't answer that question. I don't know which way they're going to go, because both are playing well. They've seen enough footy, and it's depending on what they want. Do they want someone that's proven, like Beauden, who's played a lot of footy, and they can trust him and they know what they're going to get with him? Or do you have the attacking, I guess, flair and that X factor that Damien does have? And if he can sort out those unforced errors that he kind of had in that international season last year, he can get that right, then he adds something different to that All Black attack. So I'm not too sure. Maybe you can go to Jipper on this question, because I'm on the fence and I'm giving you absolutely nothing.
So what does your gut say, Bryn? No, I was laughing.
Says nothing.
I was laughing because I was like, I'm so glad this question's on you. Because you've deflected it, I know it's coming my way. And I sort of was prepared for it, because I think there does need to be, and this is just so ironic coming from me, so I'll temper this statement with that. But I do think we need to widen our thoughts that how important the bench is, because I think when games have been close, at international level, and if we use Super Rugby Pacific, the bench has actually been the deciding factor, and that I think they both can start, but who's going to give the biggest impact off the bench? And if we look back to last season, I think that England game, Beaudy took the game by the scruff of the neck and won it. But then, in saying that, when Damien came off the bench, I think it was against Australia, he changed the game and got that result. So it's a hard one. But what I think is potentially match on the line, let Damien be Damien at the start. I think that you've got more margin for error, you've got more margin to take risk. And then, I just go back to the England game, and that was just such a performance off the bench. And look, none of them want to wear the bench jersey. I don't. I never wanted to wear the bench jersey, but I just think his impact off the bench at international level could be so drastic. And I'm talking Beaudy here, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think they could both start, but I think his impact could be greater in the last 30 minutes with that raw pace, with that ability to kick clutch goal kicks. He hasn't kicked goals for a long time. That was a 45 on the angle, maybe 50 with how wide out it was. I just think, he just seems to have the feel for international rugby, like the bomb squad, and we're about to talk to someone that knows it better than most to sit on the bench and have such a drastic impact on a game. You'd have to think, with his experience and what he's shown, World Cup final. Again, like, he just seems to be so good at that role, and he can be match defining in that role.
I'm kind of conflicted on what they might do, because last year, Brenner, it felt like they got cold feet on Damien as the season went on. Like they put their trust in him, they put multiple games on him, and then they kind of got cold feet. And you know what All Black selectors are like? I
know this is Brenner's question, but I'm going to jump in.
Go.
Because I think that's why you've got to be clear on what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So do you want a high risk? Then just tell him. Because then he can play with that freedom.
Yeah.
So I think the coaching group just needs to make that decision and then just back it. And look, if it doesn't go to plan, roll out the Ferrari, and you can still get home. Is probably what I'm trying to say.
And the one game that I saw Damien last year that probably gave me confidence that I think he can do the job with whatever way they do was that Ireland game. His game management in that game, I think, was a really turning point of what an international 10 of the confidence that he could have gained from that. Now, look, I know that they, like to what you're saying, Ross, got a little bit of cold feet, I guess, more so with the possibly the game management side, and just more so the ambitiousness that he does play with. There's a little bit of unforced errors that happened in Damien's game. But in saying it, I feel like that's what you're going to get with Damien. You let him play free, let him play ambitious, you let him have that X factor and that flair of seeing what's in front of it, and it comes part and parcel with a couple of mistakes here and there. Now, will they trust that at the international level to him to be able to do that? If he can lower those unforced error rates just a little bit, then I think it makes it a little bit easier for them not to see it as much as a risk.
I think we've got to get comfortable it's going to chop and change. Like, I think that's a key point, is that it may not be the Dan Carter set 10 sort of role. I think they both have strengths in terms of one starting one off the bench against different opposition.
Well, look at the South Africans, for example, Jip. 4 10s that they played throughout them last year. So it can be done right when you've got the pieces around you, and there's, I guess, a bit of familiarity and cohesion with other positions, and you can probably get away with a 10 being in and out. So yeah, the South Africans have done it, and no doubt we can probably touch on a lot of things with the South African, how good they are at the moment with Malcolm coming on the show shortly.
Speaking of that, let's let him into the show now. 2-time World Cup winner, Springboks hooker, one of the most dynamic breakdown players, ball carriers in all of world rugby, and the unfortunate golfing partner of Bryn Hall. Malcolm, it's tough going when you get Brynner as a golfing partner?
No, I think he's been carrying me quite a bit, to be honest. Bryn's actually shot 78, 79 the past 2 rounds that we played. So I think he's carrying me a bit, to be honest.
How many balls were in his pocket?
That's a good answer. That right there is that's my partner. That's my partner, Jip. Don't try and get between us, mate. Don't try and get between us.
I'm just jealous, mate. I'm just jealous. I'd like to hang out with him every day to talk hooker stuff.
You couldn't tell, but we're told that you broke your nose yesterday. That looks straight as an arrow.
I won't come any closer. It is a little bit skew, but the docs ended up straightening it a little bit. It's a bit better than it was yesterday. Yesterday wasn't too bad. It's just a small little bone that was a bit skew, but it's all good. I think they've done quite a decent job of straightening. It doesn't look too bad, I don't think. But yeah, just a bit of a head clash yesterday, but it's all good.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. We've been looking forward to having you on.
Some more than others.
Especially Jipper.
I'm head of your fan club of saying, get this man in a 2 jersey for 80 minutes. So I do want to go straight there. How do you enjoy that bomb squad role? Because you seem to relish and thrive in it.
It's a bit of everything. I mean, I suppose every player does want to start. I mean, as a rugby player, you want to be the best and give your best, and obviously get yourself into that number 2 jersey. But I think obviously playing for South Africa, it's a different scenario. You're still representing your country, whether you were in 2 or 16 or if you're even just in the squad. So yeah, the bomb squad is quite exciting. I mean, you got a couple of players coming off, obviously wanting to make an impact and change the game for the better. Doesn't always happen the way that we want it to, but it's a lot bigger than us, and we know that. You're representing a country, and we know what rugby does for our country. So doing it to the best of our ability and bringing joy and hope to people back home on a Saturday is a big thing for us.
With Rassie, you know, we talked around him a lot. We see him a lot around the Twitter. There's obviously a lot of stuff that he likes to put out there, more so to be, I guess, the shining light for them and take the pressure off you boys. What makes him so good? Was there anything in particular that you enjoy his coaching style that you think has had so much success with you guys winning 2 World Cups? I know Nama was there as well, but obviously Rassie being there for the last 2 World Cup wins.
But I think the transparency that we get as players is very open and clear messages. There's nothing done behind closed doors. And if you've got a question, you can walk up to him and ask him that. But I think just the way that he thinks outside the box, for me, his knowledge of the game is incredible. And yeah, man, just the stuff he does and the way he coaches, it's quite inspiring. And to see what he's done from 2018 to 2023 or 2024, it's absolutely incredible. Yeah, definitely probably the best coach that I've had.
Is he the brains behind all the innovation? I suppose we give him credit from the outside looking in, but you know, like the Twin Towers throwing the ball over your head at maul time, or is that a coaching group sort of idea?
It's a more group thing. Obviously, Rassie has got his plans and stuff, and the nice thing about it is if different, whether it's a player or a coach comes with an idea, it's not just a decision made by one person. It's a collective sort of decision that's made by everybody if it's going to work or not, which is a good thing. There are obviously tweaks and stuff that are made, but it's not a move or something like that isn't just generated by one person. Everybody obviously buys into it and hopefully it works.
Jipper just referred to the Twin Towers, that double line-out you guys had against Australia where the ball got transferred off the top to another jumper. Do you sometimes sit at these team meetings when something like that comes up and you just laugh? You're like, are we going to do this?
Yeah, at times you want to, but then, you know, there's always method behind the madness, to be honest. So, yeah, you want to laugh, but then when you see it come off, you're like, okay, I see why it's worked. And why you were thinking that way. So, yeah, no, it's so like I said, it's thinking outside of the box. It's not something that any international team would do. And yeah, we just go along with it and we obviously try and execute it to the best of our ability.
Tony Brown has been a big part coming into the Springboks. We know him from New Zealand. He thinks about the game in different ways, in his open-minded way of coaching. How have you found him? Because I feel like with him coming in, your attack has been a lot better with him being in the team now. I think the way that you guys are attacking with on the edge, you've obviously got your set piece. You're very dominant when it goes into 22 game line carries and being able to use that brute force. But it seems like your skill set has been a lot better with Tony Brown coming in. Can you maybe talk about what he's done for you?
Yeah, I think he's a great coach, and the way that he thinks about the game, especially attack-wise, is awesome. Giving the guys a lot more opportunity to express themselves. Not that we didn't have that in the past. Felix Strand was also a great attack coach. Obviously coached differently to the way that Tony coaches. But yeah, I think the guys have got a bit more ability now to express themselves and sort of use their strengths on attack with the way that he wants us to attack. It's obviously brought a different dynamic to the way that we do attack. But yeah, I think also thinking outside the box with certain things and you know, giving guys that opportunity to use their circus act, if I can put it that way. Yep. Yeah, it's been absolutely awesome see the way that it's involved as well.
You guys are in a golden age of South African rugby, and I know I can see you smiling, and it's tough for me to see that as a Kiwi, but you did debut in 2016, and, there was a few, I guess before the success of 2019. Can you pinpoint where there might have been a meeting or a game or a campaign where it kind of started to where you guys were obviously winning 2 World Cups in 2019 and 23, but can you remember where you felt there was a change and you guys were, I guess, as dominant as you guys are right now?
Brynny, I don't think I can pinpoint one specific thing or one specific tournament. I mean, obviously you go into every phase, whether it's the incoming series, the championship, or the end of your tour, you go into all of that wanting to win the game. You could sort of feel the way the team was changing for the better and getting into the right sort of space, doing the right things from, say, 2018-ish going into 2019. I don't think a lot of people gave us a chance in 2019 to even make it to the finals.
If you look at both times when you won it, you did drop a pool game. Was that I suppose a motivator, or did that change or reshape the way you guys focused after that?
Yeah, it definitely changed after we had lost those games. 2023, I'm not sure what it was like because I got injured after the Scotland game, so I headed back home. But 2019, after we had lost to the All Blacks in the opener, there was definitely a change, obviously knowing that we had to win the last couple of group stage games by a certain amount in order to make the playoffs. There was a form of motivation, knowing what you needed to do to get to that point. Like I said, 23, I wasn't there after that Ireland loss. But I definitely know in 2019, there definitely was, after that All Black game, like a bit of a motivation of what we needed to do in order to get into the playoffs.
Sometimes the best gifts come poorly wrapped.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just the way that it played out.
When you went home, Malcolm, and it was horrible for you that you missed the rest of it, Dion Ferree was then tasked with playing a bit of hooker and a bit of, flanker and whatever else. And it seems to be a thing that happens that Rassie and his coaching staff are big on, is that understanding as if you're going to stack the bench with forwards, you need backs who can play all over the place, forwards who can play all over the place. Have you ever been part of those discussions, like the opposite, where you're not a hooker, and where have they looked at you?
No. I haven't really been considered anywhere else, to be honest. I know I'm just going to stick at 2. I don't think they want to put me at lock or loose forward. I don't think it's going to benefit them in any way. Or on the bar.
I don't know. I think you go pretty well as 7.
Nah, it's never really been a discussion. Obviously, you got your more dynamic guys like your Kocha Smiths, your Peter Steph Toys, those sort of guys that can cover wing and stuff. But I've never really been part of the conversation and moving from 2 to a loose forward or into the backs at all, which I'm actually thankful about. The amount of running those backs he do is actually eye-opening.
When you said, I suppose, you're not going to be in discussions other than 2, for all the young hookers out there, I suppose, what would be, obviously throwing into the line-out and scrummaging's a prerequisite, that's a big rock, but I suppose who influenced you, or when did you start growing that wider width of your game with ball in hand, but also those defensive breakdown efforts?
I really enjoyed the way that, obviously growing up, my idol was, when I moved to 2, I looked at guys like John Smith and Bismarck du Plessis. I really liked the way they played. Obviously, Bismarck was a menace at the breakdown as well. That's just another attribute besides his set piece that he did really well. So I looked at players like that. Obviously, when I first moved to hooker, it was a difficult thing for me to focus on the general play and the set piece. I really wanted to execute the set piece, and that would generally have an effect on my game if it wasn't going well. But I sort of got to a point where I was like, well, set piece is set piece. If it doesn't work, I'm not the only factor in the set piece. I know the throwing, the scrumming obviously I'm in the middle of it. But I looked at guys like Bismarck and John Smith. They were sort of my idols growing up, especially when I moved to 2. But the other attributes I sort of just started working on after training sessions, the breakdown stuff. Obviously wanting to have dominant carries and dominant tackles. But an X factor thing that I picked up, obviously watching Bismarck, was the amount of pressure he put on attacking breakdowns, and was something that I wanted to sort of improve on and get better at.
What's the art behind that? What are the things that you've picked up that have made you so good at it?
I think it's a timing thing and actually just realizing what's in front of you. There's basically a split second or two that you have to read whether you can go into the breakdown or not. I honestly still make mistakes in going into the breakdown when I probably shouldn't. And when one of our guys is laying on the wrong side and giving a penalty away for it, it's still something that I'm working on and trying to get better at. But there are split second decisions where you have to make that decision. And I tend to more than likely bite instead of sometimes staying out when I should stay out.
We had Samasoni Taukiaho on the show last year, and he was talking about you. I mean, he's a big human being himself, and he was talking about you and heading into a breakdown and how you were over the ball and he just couldn't move you. Is there a training that you do that, you know, young players around could know about that can help you get to that position where you are just absolutely rock solid over the ball? I'm not going backwards.
Obviously the gym side of things, but I think it's more your body positioning and the width of your feet and your center of gravity being in a, like you're being in a strong position. Obviously, if you lean too far forward, you're going to fall over the breakdown. If you lean too far back, it's easier for guys to clean you out. So getting that balance in between, for me is quite important. My feet positioning, making sure that I'm not too wide and not too narrow. You've got to sort of find that sweet spot. And another thing is sort of keeping your chest over the ball as long as possible, not being able to get lifted up. If I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly, chest as close to the ball as possible for as long as possible. I know it's not always possible, but yeah, those are the three sort of things that I look at: where my feet are positioned. I'm not leaning too far back or too far forward, and obviously trying to keep my chest as low to the ground as possible or as close to the ball as possible.
I agree with your partner. I guess the thing for us in the moment in New Zealand is we don't pick from overseas. But you guys have traditionally, for a long time now, been able to play in different competitions and be able to select from abroad. How do you find that? Do you find that it helps you to be able to get away from, I guess, the hustle and bustle of international footy, to come to Japan, play a different style? A lot of players are able, financially, it's a lot more beneficial to be able to go over there to Japan or anywhere else in the world. But do you find getting that feel to play in different competitions actually does help you at international level, being able to play different styles?
I think it does, because you got players coming from everywhere. You got obviously South African-based players. You got guys based in the UK, and you got guys based in Japan. Different styles of rugby all over the place. I don't think one country plays the exact same style of rugby. So I think bringing that all together helps quite a bit. Obviously, you've got your general overview of the way that you want to play the game as a team, but there are different things that you pick up. Obviously, maybe somebody learned something in the UK that might be able to benefit the Boks, for example, or something that happened in Japan where you learned in Japan. You can take that back and learn from that as well. I'm not saying it's always the case, but obviously you learn different things playing in different countries and playing different styles of rugby. I think it has been beneficial, in my personal opinion.
In terms of the pathway system, losing a lot of that experience in and around these squads for the younger players coming through, do you think that impacts it, or do you think it puts them into the fire, so to speak, earlier so they grow? Because the Curry Cup product's still pretty strong.
I think it exposes a lot more younger players to a higher level in terms of, like, they're not playing under 21s or under 19 rugby. They sort of being put into the senior sort of setup and having to play against guys that have played Super Rugby and have played possibly international rugby. It gives them that experience, but also being in the broader squad of a URC, for example. I'll take the Sharks, for example. You've got guys like Evan Hetzebek, you've got Bongi there, you've got Lucanio, you've got Sia there. And I think those younger guys can learn from those senior guys. And obviously giving them the opportunity at Curry Cup, I think, gives them a bit more experience and not just being thrown in the deep end once they sort of developed a bit more. So I think being in those squads is a great thing, and learning from the more senior guys is good for them. And I think exposing them to that senior rugby is also good, because the only way you learn is by playing. And being in those teams and playing against other teams that have got a lot of experience as well. The only way you build experience is by playing. So I think it does benefit.
I suppose when you made your decision to go to Japan, and I mean, admittedly, you were already a Springbok who was established. Did you have to show a lot of faith in the system? Because obviously the coaches aren't going to be able to see you week in, week out. there's probably less control over your training methods and your workload and all of those things that might have happened if you were still with a South African team at that point. Was that quite a leap of faith from you?
I think yes and no. Rassie's always sort of said, if the player's good enough to play, we'll select him. So I think they do get together. They obviously watch a lot of rugby because there's a lot of players playing all over the world. And they obviously are watching your games. They do get the games and analyze and stuff. So I think it was a leap of faith, but knowing that if you are playing good rugby, you're also eligible to be selected.
Do you, as an individual, you've achieved a hell of a lot. What's left on the checklist, or what are the goals in the coming years? Obviously, there's another World Cup, but is there other parts of the world you want to play in, or is it just targeting that World Cup?
At the moment, I'm pretty happy where I am, to be honest. But obviously, goals, I'm not trying to think too far ahead at the moment. I've got goals for this year, and obviously the first thing is obviously applying myself here in Japan to the team, and then hopefully when it comes to that June series, hopefully make that squad to play for the Boks again. That's the biggest honor and privilege for me is to represent my country. So every single year, that's the main goal for me. Work hard so that I can try and get myself into that squad and hopefully play.
And a 2-test series against New Zealand in New Zealand. It's not something that I don't suppose that's come across in your career at all, is it? That must be something quite special.
To play New Zealand twice in New Zealand is big. Yeah, like I said, I'm not looking too far ahead. I'm just trying to apply myself now. I mean, it would be hell of exciting to be able to be on that tour and obviously play there. I think it's going to be a huge 2 tests.
Can I take you back maybe to 2018 quickly? Because were you here for Wellington for that game? Because that seemed like a landmark game. It seemed like a game that was so incredibly important to a Boks side that had copped 40 and 50 points in the previous years to come to New Zealand and win like that. And it sets you on your way in some ways. Do you look back at that and think, wow, that was a landmark moment and that's the kind of thing that we can achieve this year?
It definitely was a landmark moment. I don't think we had beaten New Zealand for a while before that. So it was something that we want to achieve. But we know playing New Zealand in New Zealand isn't easy. It's never an easy game. It's always a tough game. So we're obviously going to have to work hard, and it's always tough. And I mean, I don't know when last the side or Springboks side has beaten, or if they have beaten the All Blacks at Eden Park before. I'm not sure if you guys know those stats. I don't, but I know that it's been quite a while. So yeah, it definitely is something to look forward to and a challenge that I think we all look forward to.
Well, I tell you what, in that Eden Park week, if you're looking for a high handicap, plenty of stable foot point golf partner, I'm your man.
I have to get rid of Brenny then.
Yeah, turf him, mate. Okay, one last thing before we go, mate. We've got to find out, before you come to New Zealand, I know you debuted against Dane Coles, which probably is quite a lippy experience. Who is your toughest opponent? Actually, did you get a bit of lip from Dane Coles in that first test match?
100%. I don't think he lets anybody off hook.
How did he greet the rookie?
Just mouthy on the field as always, but yeah, a lot of good banter on and off the field. But good experience, man. He's a great player, and it was awesome, obviously, to play against him.
Would he be up there with your toughest opponent? Who's your toughest?
Augustine Creevy, Montoya is good. Playing against Bongi and some of the South African hookers, obviously when back in Super Rugby was really tough as well. I don't think I can pinpoint one exact person. Cody Taylor's brilliant. Obviously Dane Coles was tough as well, and mouthy. But yeah, man, I can't pinpoint one person, but yeah, there's obviously a good few from New Zealand, South Africa, and obviously Argentina as well that have put me under a lot of pressure. So yeah, it's been tough.
Well, thank you very much for your time, mate, and thank you to Brennan for bringing him on the show.
I'll get you next golf round, partner. Don't worry about it. I'll pay for it, mate. Thank you very much.
Just a nice coffee there from your fancy machine at the clubhouse will be good, bro. It's all big.
Oh, you're a good man, Melky. No problem. I'll get you one. on Tuesday.
Right, Malcolm Marx. It was a pleasure for you, Jipper.
Oh, he did not disappoint. My gosh, he's got a lot of gold nuggets in there for a lot of young players, no matter if you're a hooker or not. Just the way his mindset is, special.
Brendan, you made Jipper's day.
It's all I can do to help you, Big Jipper. It helped me as well. It was a great day for me as well to actually hear all that from my teammates. So that was awesome. Awesome to hear. I had some really good insight to that South African team as well.
Brenna, I'll tell you what, I'll get you a round of golf when you return to New Zealand as a thank you.
Fantastic. I can't wait to use your Tiarai membership, mate.
I play off 36, so I'll probably win.
Right, okay. Enough of that. Now, we've had plenty of emails come through from you guys. We've had one from Matthew Villiamu, and please send us an email at aotearoarugbypod@sky.co.nz. And this is a little bit closer to home after talking to Malcolm Marx. He says, I know we have absolute ballers and game breakers all across the country, but it pains me to watch one-out runners smashing into the defence, especially close to the line. Where's the creativity? It feels like the likes of Ireland and France have evolved their attacking shape as well as the speed of their phase play to be a generation ahead of anything that we are doing. It's a very interesting point. I think we can say that there's some truth in that point.
Generation ahead might be a bit far, but I think like if you look at the 22 space, and I watch some top 14, and if you look at the tap method now of not kicking to the corner and not going for a scrum is based from, I suppose, the top 14. And I can't remember the teams that first started, but I think Toulouse was a big part of it around creating that, I suppose, creativity and something. What they've done is something that looks the same with 10 different options. So defensively, where the creativity comes from is you don't know what's going to happen because there's so many variations. And I think that is starting to make its way into Super Rugby. I think we've seen more and more tap kick phases, and we've seen some switchbacks. I think we've even seen the All Blacks do it. So I think it's growing. But then you've got to understand there's competition points at stake, and it works. The one-off runners works. It's a chess match. It draws defences in. At the end of the day, these people are all employed to win. And if it's going to get that result, why would you go away from it? Is probably my only take. But I also think this new rule around the 9 is going to create the Jamison Gibson Park effect, because I think he's one of the best in the 22, and Bryn, probably you can talk to this better than I, but he snipes, and we've got someone in Roygaard, but there's also, bodies in motion, but it's not just a generic bodies in motion. Like there's so many variations, even from ruck to ruck. So I think it's a fair point. But to put into context, why would you go away from something when you're playing for a title in that competition that works against the defence? Because the defence gives you the picture, or the defence's strengths or weaknesses gives you as the attack the game plan to execute to score points.
As an attacking side, when that ball carrier is so close and it's really congested, it tightens up the defence. So then a lot of the time you've seen in Super Rugby, you see, the winger or the last kind of defender really tight because the pick and goes has made it so tight. Also, when it's close to the line, people are giving away penalties because it's for whatever reason you can't, Jipper touched on it a few weeks ago, I think, when you've got to have your hand behind the line and straight away you're going to give away a penalty. And so I think we have seen a little bit in terms of like going to the edge off. I think even the Blues, I think I touched on it one week when the Blues did that kind of Blues DNA of going through the middle and then being able to score on the edge from that. So I think in the 22 metre zone, especially when there's 14 players in the line, you've got to be able to try and condense them. And I think what we're seeing in Super Rugby and what we saw with the Blues last year as an example, they picked and go, went through the heart and been able to score tries that way. And there has been an evolution of being able to try to go from the width. So when the backs do see the opportunity, I guess it's more so try and get your eyes up and to see what's in front of you to then be able to pull trigger.
This weekend, we're going to see a really big weekend of footy at Eden Park. We're going to see Moana Pacifica and the Blues, which should be an absolute cracker to see who is the dominant team in Auckland. Jipper?
Go the Blues.
And then straight off the back of that, we're going to see the Aupiki final, where the Blues women are looking to go back-to-back against Matatu, who they lost to a couple of weeks ago. Matatu then went and lost to the Manua. Really interesting, Jip, that a team is coming out of a loss into a final. I mean, that just doesn't happen because you've got to win your semi-final, but when there's no semi-final, you're in a position where you're learning from a loss to go into a final.
Yeah, and I think why the loss will hurt is the reality going into that game is they could have had a home final had the Poa, tripped up the Blues in some way. So I think they'll be dented by it, but sometimes, and I sort of was trying to have an angle of that with Malcolm Marx around those pool losses. It can be a gift, although it's poorly wrapped and they won't like it. They know they've got the ability to do so, but they are the way they beat the Blues up north was through speed of play. Speed of ball, quick taps, kick territory, go to line-outs, put the line-out under pressure, force turnovers. So they've got it all there. It's just if they don't get their carry right, they don't get their clean right, they can't play that up-tempo game that Maya Joseph can just absolutely exploit anyone. Hannah King, the same. Amy Duplessis, really came into her own in that second half, attacking-wise, and they left a lot of opportunities out there. So they're going to need to score points, though. Like the Blues will score points, and defensively they've been quite strong, the Blues, throughout the year. There's been a couple of obviously tight games, but they have held the Matatu to 7 in their first game. So I think the strengths of the Matatu rely heavily in and around that speed of breakdown on attack. And then defensively, they just can't get tight. Like the Blues love the edge play. Absolutely, you got Woodman, and we saw on the weekend Basin, moving into that edge role was extremely strong. So, Sylvia Brunt, like all these X factor players that can really Colossi. I could just go all day, but if they don't allow the Blues to get to that edge, they're right in the contest. But they've got to make sure that they don't get too tight, and they got the rewards from that rush D. If Masu can really put that rush D and stop that edge ball and make their one-on-one tackles, then there's no reason why they can't come north and get a result.
It looks like we've got a new star in Talfa Basin too, because wow, her work on the edge as an open side flanker, was something else. Brenna, did you catch that try that she scored and then the next one that she set up?
Jeff, how old is she? 18, 19?
She's also pushed her way into the squad. She wasn't getting a crack and almost forced her way through performances off the bench. So a young player coming through and looks athletic. Like it's not I probably wouldn't say a muscular 7. Like she's quite lean and almost looks more like a 7s player and has shown that skill set. But physical. Like she's almost a very, very perfect breed for that loose forward. And, you saw Niall Williams go there previous seasons, very similar in terms of the way they've played her, in terms of in and around that breakdown defensively and the contact, but then letting her play on that width.
She's been outstanding. Definitely one for the future. We talk around Georgia Miller, possibly coming back in that loose forward trio for the Black Ferns. Don't know when that's actually going to be announced soon, but look, Talfa Basin, if she continues to keep playing with how she does on the edge, it's something that they could, possibly consider for selection with someone with that kind of skill set.
Are we seeing the next big family here in New Zealand rugby? If we look at her brothers, Vernon and Mosese, like both under-20s internationals?
If you look at the pathway system and you even look at their performance, in NPC in terms of Vernon and Mosese, definitely it's on the cards. I mean, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge, but yeah, I don't see why you couldn't see all three in black jerseys. How good is it though? Like I couldn't pick a World Cup squad. In terms of the depth and the 7s players coming across, like in terms of things just sort of peaking at the right time for the Black Ferns, it is really, really exciting. I mean, daunting job for the coaches and selectors, but as a fan and watching this growth is extremely, I suppose, positive in the sense that we can go to this World Cup and believe, genuinely believe. I know we've had our problems. With England, and there's no secret to that, and sometimes France, and obviously some surprise losses with Wales and Ireland, but I don't know, I don't know, you get the sense, maybe I'm being old half full cup over here again, but I've really enjoyed the Aupiki competition. I'm really enjoying the edge that it's going to bring with the 7s players coming across and picking a squad that can go and do something special. First things first, though, I know the Aupiki final's on, but...
And you're picking the Blues.
I am. I know they dropped the game up north, but they rested a lot of players and gave opportunity, and I'm just, they just have been an unstoppable force on attack, and if they get to that edge, I don't know how you stop them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit too tough for Matatu. I think Jipper touched on when they won last time, even though it was a depleted Blues side. I think, the physicality, they're going to have to try and be there for 80 minutes on both sides of the ball, because I think if you do give the Blues opportunities with the interplay with their forwards, their tip ball, their outside backs, their midfield, midfielders. They're very, very stacked. So I think Matatu are going to have to get off to a fast start, physicality-wise, try to put them under pressure. So that line speed pressure will be really efficient around that tackling efficiency. And then I guess that Maya Joseph and Hannah King, I guess, have their way when it comes to territory, being able to game manage with their kicking game and try and, I guess, stifle that Blues attack. It's going to be hard to stop when the Blues are going forward.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you to everyone who helps us put the show together. Thank you to Ashley and Martin Medical Hair Centres for supporting us. We'll catch you next week, and make sure you catch us on any of the Sky platforms. You can get us an audio pod, catch us on social media, give us a like and a subscribe and all those kind of things. And we'll catch you next week on the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Mā te wā.